In this lesson, we will review how to add and subtract mixed numbers. And for both examples, we'll look at two methods. In the first method, we'll work with the mixed numbers, and for the second method, we'll convert to improper fractions. Let's first find the sum of 1 1/5 plus 2 2/3 by working with the mixed numbers. So let's first write this sum vertically. We have 1 1/5 plus 2 2/3. We know to add fractions, we must obtain a common denominator. The least common denominator of 1/5 and 2/3 is equal to 3 times 5, which equals 15. So let's first write 1/5 and 2/3 as equivalent fractions with a denominator of 15. So we multiply the numerator and denominator of 1/5 by 3 and multiply the numerator and denominator of 2/3 by 5. So 1 1/5 is equal to 1 3/15. 2 2/3 is equal to 2 10/15. Now that we have a common denominator, we can add the fractions as well as add the whole numbers. 3/15 plus 10/15 is equal to 13/15, and 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. Now once we find the sum using mixed numbers, we need to make sure the fraction part is in the correct form. First, it must be simplified. The fraction is simplified if the only common factor between the numerator and denominator is 1. Notice 13/15 is simplified because the only common factor between 13 and 15 is 1. But we also need to make sure this fraction is proper. If it happens to be an improper fraction, we'd have to write it as a mixed number and then add it to the whole number. But 13/15 is a proper fraction, and therefore this is the sum. However, let's just say, for example, the sum happened to be, let's say, 3 20/15. This is not our sum, but if it was, we would first have to simplify this fraction and also recognize that it's an improper fraction. Let's first simplify 20/15. 20 and 15 share a common factor of 5, so we would divide the numerator and denominator by 5. This would give us 3 4/3, because 20 divided by 5 is 4, 15 divided by 5 is 3. But this would still not be in the correct form because 4/3 is an improper fraction. 4/3 is equal to 1 1/3, so we'd have to write this as 3 plus 1 1/3, which is equal to 4 1/3. So if we did get a sum that was in this form, we would have to simplify the fraction and then convert the improper fraction to a mixed number, and then finally determine the sum. This would be the correct form if we're adding mixed numbers. We had 3 20/15. Now let's determine the sum again by first converting the mixed numbers to improper fractions. Remember, to convert a mixed number to an improper fraction, the numerator is equal to the denominator times the whole number plus the numerator, and the denominator remains the same. To convert 1 1/5 to an improper fraction, we would have 5 times 1, which equals 5, plus 1, which equals 6, which means 1 1/5 is equal to 6/5. So 1 1/5 is equal to 6 copies of 1/5, and then we have plus, now we convert 2 2/3 to an improper fraction. So the numerator is going to be 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 2, which equals 8. So 2 2/3 is equal to 8/3. So 2 2/3 is equal to 8 copies of 1/3. The next step, we determine the least common denominator, which is 15. So we multiply the numerator and denominator of 6/5 by 3, and the numerator and denominator of 8/3 by 5. 6/5 is equivalent to 18/15, plus 8/3 is equivalent to 40/15. Now that we have the same denominator, we can add the fractions. We add the numerators. 18 plus 40 is equal to 58. The denominator remains 15. Now this fraction is simplified because the only common factor between 58 and 15 is 1. However, it is an improper fraction. If it's okay to leave the sum as an improper fraction, we would be done, but typically, if the sum is given using mixed numbers, we return the sum using mixed numbers. Let's convert 58/15 to a mixed number to make sure we do get 3 13/15. To do this, we divide the numerator by the denominator. So 58 divided by 15, there are 3 15s in 58. 3 times 15 is 45. We subtract. The difference is 13. So to form the fraction of the mixed number, we write the remainder of 13 over the divisor of 15. So 58 fifteenths is equal to 3 and 13 fifteenths. Now let's look at the difference. Again, we'll solve this using two methods. We'll first determine the difference using the mixed numbers, and then we'll find the difference using improper fractions. So using the mixed numbers, we have 4 and 3/5 minus 1 and 5/6. First step, determine the least common denominator. The least common denominator is 5 times 6, which equals 30. So we multiply the numerator and denominator of 3/5 by 6, and the numerator and denominator of 5/6 by 5. 4 and 3/5 is equal to 4 and 18/30. 1 and 5/6 is equal to 1 and 25/30. Now remember we're subtracting here, and we cannot subtract 25/30 from 18/30, which means we'll have to perform an exchange with the 4. 4 and 18/30 is equal to 3 plus 1 plus 18/30, and 1 is equal to 30/30, so we can write this as 3 plus 30/30 plus 18/30, which gives us 3 and 48/30. So by performing an exchange with a 1, 4 and 18/30 is equal to 3 and 48/30. And now we can perform the subtraction. To subtract the fractions, we first subtract the numerators. 48 minus 25 is equal to 23, and the denominator remains 30. So the fraction part is 23/30, and now we subtract the whole numbers. 3 minus 1 is equal to 2. Notice the fraction does not simplify because the only common factor between 23 and 30 is 1. This is the difference using mixed numbers. And now let's find the difference again by first converting the mixed numbers to improper fractions. To convert 4 and 3/5 to an improper fraction, the numerator is going to be 5 times 4 plus 3. Well, 5 times 4 is 20, plus 3 equals 23. So 4 and 3/5 is equal to 23/5. So we have 23/5 minus. Now we'll convert 1 and 5/6 to an improper fraction. The numerator is 6 times 1 plus 5, which equals 11. So 1 and 5/6 is equal to 11/6. Now we'll write these as equivalent fractions with the denominator of 30. So we multiply the numerator and denominator of 23/5 by 6, and the numerator and denominator of 11/6 by 5. 23/5 is equal to 138/30. 11/6 is equal to 55/30. Now that we have the same denominator, we can subtract. Subtracting the numerators, 138 minus 55 is equal to 83, and therefore the difference is 83/30. 83/30 does not simplify because the only common factor between 83 and 30 is 1. So if we're allowed to leave our difference as an improper fraction, we would be done. But again, because the problem is given using mixed numbers, we would typically convert back to mixed numbers. To convert to a mixed number, we divide. We'd have 83 divided by 30. There are two 30s in 83. 2 times 30 is 60. We subtract. The remainder is 23, and therefore the quotient is 2 and 23/30, which of course is the same difference we had above. So there are pros and cons of each method when determining the sum and difference of mixed numbers. So it is important to be aware of both techniques. I hope you found this helpful.